Well, let's get the show on the road, shall we? Let's get this off of here and let's start chatting. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the library. As you can see, Lenny is here, Victor is here, and we are ready for some football ghost stories this evening. So let's start by lighting our candles, as always. Getting low on candles. I got to get some more. Let me just say a quick hello to everyone before we get started. Hello, Mustang Mike. Hello, Tony the Night Owl. Hello, Chris Trock. Hello, Sweet Tea. Hello, Adam Cravoursier. Maureen Frick. Delilah. Theme Do My Brother. Gerard, my good friend. Excellent to see you. Hope you're feeling well. Who am I missing here? Todd Father. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're feeling better. M-Pow. Good to see you. Vincent Capiche in the house. Osada Treats. Leaving his stand, but tuning in nonetheless. Tommy Stiggs is in the house. I hope I didn't miss anybody. Suzanne is here. Patty Joyce is here. Good evening. Just me. Good evening. And I think that's it for now. But thank you all for coming in and hanging out a little bit. Deborah Roberts is here. Good to see you. All right. All right. The usual format. I'm going to tell you my stories. Let's shut that light off. We don't need that. Tell you I have 4 football stories for you this evening. Football ghost related stories. And then I have some paranormal videos to go through. So let's get started. Now, the first story I want to tell you is really, it's a ghost story, but it's also a mystery. And it takes place in the year 1960. By the way, I forgot to mention, Lenny is a little excited about Valentine's Day. He's got his hat on already. So he gets a little enthusiastic. So bear with him. I know Valentine's Day is next week, and we'll do a Valentine's Day episode, St. Valentine's Day. But he's a little bit excited. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Let him wear his fedora. All right. All right. Haunted News. Good to see you, my friend. All right. Sharing with Shannon. Good to see you. I'm so happy you guys are making this. All right. So our first story takes place in 1960. And it is Indiana. And this is dripping like a you-know-what. I don't understand it. What is going on with this? Normally, they don't drip like this. Anyway. All right, so our first story takes place in Indiana, the University of Indiana in 1960. Now, at that time, they were building the stadium, the current football stadium. So the one that was there, was decent, but they were building a new one. And I'd like to show you what it looks like so you get a good idea of what I'm talking about in this story. All right. All right, let's see. What are we doing here? Which one do we got here? All right. That's not it. I got a lot of pictures for you guys tonight, so I got to keep on top of it. All right, what I do have for you is here it is. Okay. As you can see, it's a beautiful stadium, Indiana, University of Indiana. It's actually called The Rock, I believe. And our story takes place in this stadium. Now, this is what it looks like now. This is the modern stadium at the time. And in 1960, this was being built. It was still in the process of being built. And I think I have a picture of what it looks like what it looked back then in here somewhere. So I want to show you that too while I'm at it, so you know exactly what I'm talking about here. It's a beautiful stadium now, and it wasn't a bad-looking stadium then either. Here's what it looked like then, in 1960. This picture's a little bit harder to see. It's got those watermarks on it, but it was still a nice stadium, and they were building a new one, or refurbishing, I guess, this one, building a whole new section to it. Now, what happens is on February 15th, 1960, that morning, the building crew wakes up to find that hanging from the rafters is a student of the school by the name of Michael Plume, Plume. Now, poor Michael Plume, hanging from a rope from the rafters of the newly built stands. Now, what I wanted, let me see. I think I found a picture of what poor Michael Plume looked like when he was with us, if I can find it. But it really doesn't matter, and it's kind of tiny. But there he goes. That's what Mr. Michael Plume looked like, and he was a student at the University of Indiana. And he was in the Air Force or the Air Corps. So basically, he was training to come out as an officer in the Air Force. And he was also a member of the football team. Just happened to be that as well. But on this February 15th morning, it was cold and snowy. A lot of rain and snow around. And the crew goes out to the construction site that very morning, and they find this poor gentleman hanging from the rafters of the newly built stands. Now, not only is he hanging from a noose, but he's also, his feet are touching. Now try to picture this. His feet are barely touching the flatbed of a pickup truck that was left on the site by the work crew. So his body is hanging from a noose with his shoes barely touching the flatbed of the pickup truck. And the interesting thing about this is that his shoes were brand new, not a piece of dirt or mud on them, even though the ground was covered with melting snow and mud. Now, this is all very strange. And in fact, the people of the university could not understand why this would even happen. Michael was a happy, successful student. There was no indication of depression or anything else wrong that would lead him to this. So that in and of itself creates a mystery as to why someone would take his own life like this. And at the time, the university was looking to get as least amount of press around this as possible. They were building a new stadium. They were gathering funds for the stadium. They didn't want any type of negative or spooky press around this. So at that time, the coroner quickly ruled it a suicide. Well, this did not sit well with Michael Plume's family. In fact, they were quite outraged about this, considering the fact that they knew their son, he would never do such a thing. And what about the fact that his shoes were brand new and totally untouched? So that leads us to what happens next. So after Michael Plume's unfortunate body is taken down and buried, thereafter, as the stadium is completed, things start to happen amongst the stadium. Unusual sightings begin to take place. In fact, people begin to see in the early morning hours and in the evening an image, a phantom of Michael Plume hanging from the rafters at different parts of the stadium, not in just the area where he was, but all over the place. And this becomes a pretty relative relatively common activity or sighting. People seem to see this over the years. Now, while this is going on, the family is advocating over and over again that they did not think that Michael Plum committed suicide, and they were on him, and they were on bringing actions against this, and et cetera, bringing legal action, et cetera. So this went on for many, many decades, with sightings of Michael Plum's spirit being sporadic, appearing always during football season in the stadium, but at random times, never on any type of calendar event, any type of specific date and time, etc. And this continued up until 1999. Now, what happened in 1999 was the coroner reopened this type of quest into this, and it wasn't actually, and they opened it up, right? So they didn't have a ruling yet. And then that remained that way up until 2022, I believe, or 2021, sometime like that, where they finally ruled that this was not a suicide and that it was so suspicious that it could not be ruled a suicide. Excuse me. Now, by this time, the case is so cold. Who knows, what could ever happen to it? Who knows? But the theory or the thought is that Michael Plum's spirit was so upset about him being wrongly accused or thought of being a suicide that he could not leave, that he would constantly reappear in this form, reminding people of this. Now, what caused his death is really the question. The theory is that he was actually murdered. This poor gentleman was actually murdered, and that he was strangled to death, because what the coroner found in the second inquest is that he did not have a broken neck, is which he would have gotten if he jumped and his neck was broken by the noose. It was not broken. He died of asphyxiation, meaning he was strangled. And whoever the murderer was took him and put him there, put the noose around his neck, dangled him there to make it appear to be a suicide. Now, the rumor mill went crazy on this, but the prevailing theory is that Michael Plum was unfortunate to have witnessed a homosexual encounter between two other airmen who had a lot to ride on this and did not want to be discovered, and were so afraid of being discovered, and who's to know what went on, that they may have murdered him and did this to cover it up. But that's the prevailing theory of the Plum family. Now, whatever actually happened, we'll never know, probably, because, like I said, this is so long ago, 1960. Those that were involved were probably dead themselves. But ever since the inquest has ruled it not a suicide, they haven't ruled it a murder yet. Still looking at it, but they haven't ruled it a suicide. The sightings of Michael Plum's ghost have severely curtailed down. In fact, I couldn't find one after 2017. So it's quite an interesting tale on how this possibility of this restless spirit reaching out because of the unjustly way his death was recorded or believed to occur by society. So that's the first story. Michael Plum of Indiana University Memorial Stadium, the former football player and would-be Air Force lieutenant or captain, whatever you may come out of once you're in ROTC. So that's the first story of the night. All right. Gina, hello. Good to see you. Anyone else that I miss? I don't want to miss anyone before I start my next story. Slimity, good to see you, buddy. All right. Thank you, guys. Tony Niall, I said hello to before. All right, cool. Thank you. Yes, Dino, it is a horrible story. It is a terrible, tragic story. All right. Let's go on to the next story. Now, Camp Randall, Wisconsin is the name of the stadium for the University of Wisconsin. And this stadium as well, a beautiful football stadium, a major player, a Division I football team, is also said to be haunted by many a group of spirits. So let me show you what the University of Wisconsin's stadium currently looks like. And then I will tell you the story that goes along with it. All right. If I could find it. There we go. This is what the University of Wisconsin's Memorial Field looks like. I'm not Memorial Field. This is Camp Randall Field. Now, this is an interesting story because the background to this is that before this stadium was built, and it's still part of it is still adjacent to the stadium, there was an old pioneer cemetery there. Pioneer meaning, from the 1800s, the early to mid 1800s, or mid 1800s, when people were moving out west and moving through Wisconsin. There was a pioneer cemetery there, which occurs in a lot of different areas in the Midwest, because as the train west would be proceeding, people would die at different sites and they would bury them, or people would die along the route and they bury them in these cemeteries, all of that. So in addition to that, there was also a camp here, a military camp. So you have two things going on. You have a cemetery and you also have the military camp. Now, the military camp was Camp Randall, and that's what eventually they named the stadium after, because they built the stadium right on what was Camp Randall. And Camp Randall was a Civil War training site for Union soldiers. And in addition to that, as the war progressed, it became a prison, a makeshift prison for Confederate soldiers. So in the course of that, you had troops of about 70,000 troops that were trained in that location. And between 1862 and the end of the war, 1865, you had about 1,200 Confederates housed there as prisoners. And through the course of that time, 140 of them actually died there from various reasons: dysentery, disease, such, et cetera, like that. That's what most of them died from. And they were put into mass graves. That's how they would bury them at the time, because the war was on. They didn't have the resources to deal with this. So there's mass graves there in which this stadium was built upon. And they tried their best to remove all of them, but it is not clear that they removed all of the bodies underneath the stadium. So what happens as a result of this? So ever since they've built this stadium, there have been continuous sightings, especially by people in the early morning hours, tailgaters ready to come to the stadium for a game. Wisconsin is a very popular football area, so people really love this and get there early, and they set up camp and they go through the whole 9 yards. And if they get there early enough, a lot of them come before light. A lot of them come when it's dark. And some of them have said that they have seen the spirits of Confederate soldiers wandering through here, usually in hospital dresses, as if they were wounded, bandaged up on crutches, wandering through the parking lot, wandering through the stadium itself, all about the place, just aimlessly wandering. In addition to that, they have seen pioneer women, which may have come from the Pioneer Cemetery, wandering about in various disrupting tailgates, so to speak, because people get so freaked out about it that they end up moving, bugging out until light comes. So it's an interesting concept to see. I would think, if out of the blue, spirits seem to start wandering about, but there's never been anything concrete about direct scares or attributing these to direct people. It's probably this mass grave because of the Confederate dresses, uniforms, and as well as the few pioneer women that they see in the long dresses. And in addition to that, there's always orbs around this area, which are probably the manifestation of these spirits, and various lights at different times. When everything is shut down, lights will appear out of the air. So it's quite a haunting area, I would say, for a stadium to be built on. But that's where it is. So that's Camp Randall, Wisconsin, the University of Wisconsin. All right. Hey, Stony. Good to see you, Stony Tony. All right. Let's go on to the number 3. Now, Lee Williams High School, which is located in Kingman, Arizona, also built on a pioneer cemetery. Now, this is an interesting thing, right? This is happening more than all. This is way out in Arizona, though. This is out in the desert, so to speak, right? So let me show you a picture of what we're talking about here. Oh, before I do that, I wanted to show you real quick what Camp Randall looked like. Sorry about that. I forgot to show you this one. Camp Randall, what it looked like during the Civil War. And you can see, it's typical for that time. It is it's a very makeshift thing with tents, a lot of, horses and wagons, etc. This is what Camp Randall looked like during the Civil War, where they housed all of these Confederate prisoners. All right. Stop sharing that. Now let's go on to our pioneer, again, our pioneer cemetery built Lee Williams High School. Now, Lee Williams High School is built next to this pioneer cemetery. They didn't build on top of the cemetery in this case, but right next door to it. So let's see. Here's what Lee Williams High School looks like. Much like any other semi-modern high school, this is the entrance to the stadium that they built, the football stadium. And here is what it looked like. Here's what the Pioneer Cemetery looked like next door to it. See, it's built on, it's basically a prairie or desert type prairie. The Pioneer Cemetery is all around here. And this picture is taken for where the high school is now. So it borders it and may even have encroached on it a bit based on, wear and tear on graves, and they may have missed some. Who knows? But anyway, this is the situation. This is the Pioneer Cemetery, and which is right next on top of Lee Williams High School. Let's stop sharing that. And I'll give you one more shot. This is what the football field looks like when it's in action. Just your typical high school football, evening football, Friday night lights. Typical thing here at Lee Williams High School. So what's the story behind this one? Well, the bleachers to this place have been built over and over again because they, I guess, wear and tear, and they've built them many times, and they've built onto them a little bit by little, making them a little bigger over time, more accommodating for fans. Well, in 2010, during renovations of the bleachers, they were digging a trench to put in the new foundation for them, and they came across 11 coffins that they never knew were there, that were assumably linked to the cemetery, but put off to the sides for some reason. So 11 coffins were disturbed when they dug the foundation for this new bleachers of the stadium. Now, since that has happened, there has been a lot of activity in the high school, on the football field, all about the area. Now, some of the things that they've seen, spirits will appear out of thin air in various spots, and some of the spirits they see are a man with a derby hat, a round derby hat, wandering the halls of the high school. There's a little girl who is said to run around the football field, and if you encounter her, she'll say, I'm going to play. She'll say that over and over again. There's light orbs that pop up all about the stadium at various times. And there's a general uneasiness, especially around graduations or football games when there's a massive amount of people there, as if the spirits are not happy with the fact that there's so many people there disturbing their rests. There's also women in prairie grounds, like the those long old pioneer women gowns that women would wear. They're seen wandering about at times as well. And there will be in the school itself, alarms will go off for no reason at various times. Hair dryers in the bathrooms will go on when no one's there. And people will hear footsteps on the stadium bleachers when no one's there. You'll be sitting and you'll hear as if someone's walking up the bleachers when you turn and there's not a soul there. So a lot of activity around the football field, right near where those coffins were found. And these spirits seem to have been disturbed and continue to be active because of that fact. So that is the Lee Williams High School Kingdom from Kingman, Arizona, built on an old pioneer or right on part of an old pioneer cemetery. All right. That's number 3. Now, the last football story that I have is about this gentleman right here. Now, you might say, then what does this have to do with football? But you'll find out what it is as I go through this. This gentleman right here, Jimmy R. Hoffa. Look at that smiling face. Well, for many years, people thought Jimmy Hoffa's body was buried under Giant Stadium. For various reasons, concerning the nature of his relationship with organized crime, et cetera, et cetera. But it turns out that Jimmy Hoffa's ghost does not haunt Giant Stadium. It haunts the Detroit Lions Stadium. Now, what that means about what location to the body, who knows? All I know is that there is a story about Jimmy Hoffa haunting Detroit Lions Stadium. Now, in life, he was a major Detroit Lions fan. In fact, he would go to games all the time. And it's said that he was so rabid about this that he would would tell his family that he would be watching football games in the afterlife. So he was a rabid Detroit Lions football fan. Now, before we get to the actual story on how the ghost actually appears or how it first appears, there is a backstory to this. There was a Detroit quarterback by the name of Bobby Lane, and in 1957, he broke his leg in 2 places on the last game of the season. So he was playing for the Detroit Lions. He broke his leg in 2 places at the season. After the season is over, and he was their franchise quarterback at the time. He was someone that was very valued and very popular and very happy where he was. The Detroit Lions decide, because of his injury, to trade him. So 1958 comes, and he's told that there's a trade, that he's traded out, he's gone. And as he's walking out the door, he's very unhappy about this. He says, basically curses the Detroit Lions. It says, you will not win another championship for 50 years. So remember that. And in fact, the Detroit Lions didn't win anything for quite a long time. So who knows? That's a different story. But it's related to this story because we all know that Jimmy Hoffa disappeared on July 30th, 1975 in Michigan on the side of a road near a hotel or a motel, I should say, where he was about to meet certain people. And you could see that very vividly in The Irishman. If you want to see that they do it well. They show you exactly what happened in the Irishman, or at least the theory of what happened. So, take a look at that if you can, if you're interested in that stuff. But so he disappears in July 30th, 1975. Now he doesn't become declared dead until 7 years later, when without finding him. So, but anyway, 1976 comes along. 1976, the beginning of the football season, the preseason actually. So it's the summer of 1976. Elmer Ensworth is a janitor that works in the Detroit Lions Stadium. And he is preparing for the season as they would normally do, preparing for a preseason game. He's going through the stands, cleaning up, preparing for the next event to occur. One early morning, he gets there early and begins to start going through things early. As he's walking through the stands, making his way through, he sees in the distance a gentleman sitting in the stands, watching, just looking ahead, looking quietly out onto the field. Now, Mr. Elmer, believes this is probably an executive from the team, from the front office, watching things, how they're going, the preparation of it, because he could see that he's dressed in a suit, much like in this picture, suit and tie. He's just sitting there quietly, smoking a cigar. And Elmer just continues along his way, and he gets closer to him in the normal course of sweeping and cleaning. And as he comes closer, he sees the gentleman, and he doesn't recognize him, though, as any member of the office staff, as an owner or a front office guy, nothing like that. But he does recognize the guy. He recognizes him, but he can't place him. He can't place him where he's seen him. So he goes up to him and he says, I'm sorry, sir. If you're not associated with the team, you have to go. I'm cleaning. I'm cleaning. This can't, you can't stay here. And this gentleman slowly turns to him and says, don't worry. I'm just here to watch. I won't be here long. And so Elmer didn't know what to say at this point. Here's a guy that he thinks is not part of the team, but is sitting here on his own. How did he get in here? What is he doing? Who knows? Why is he here? So Elmer's taken aback by his response, but then tries again. He says, I'm sorry, sir, but I really need you to leave. And the gentleman again turns to him and says, I'm really okay with leaving, but I really need the Lions to win. I really want them to win. There's no way I can wait 50 years for the Lions to win. And now Elmer at this time, being a member of the staff there, he was familiar with the rumor of the curse by Bobby Lane. So it wasn't a shock in that perspective. And he assumes that this guy's just joking and going along with, the whole rumor. The whole legend of how the Lions won't win. So Elmer says, yeah, I would like them to win too. None of us want to wait for 50 years. But he said, but sir, you really need to go. So, and the gentleman said, don't worry, I'll be gone in a minute or two. So Elmer takes him at his word and begins to sweep and continues up the stands. And as he turns, in a moment, he stops and turns around. And as he sees it, he sees that the man is completely gone and the man has completely vanished. Now, Elmer was shocked by this, obviously. And because of this, was pretty shaken. And that night he went home and he tells his wife about what had occurred. And it just so happened that in the paper that day, there was an expose about Jimmy Hoffa and how he was missing and how no developments had happened or had come up. And he looks at the paper and he turns white as he tells his wife, this is the guy that I saw in the stadium. And that is the first sighting of Jimmy Hoffa's ghost in Detroit Lions Stadium. And ever since that time, over the years, people have said that they have heard Jimmy Hoffa's voice in the stadium cheering on the Lions, vehemently cheering on the Lions. Now, there was a section where he'd always sit, and it said that that's the section most where his voice will echo and people will hear it over and over again cheering on the Lions. And it is thought that he somehow was, because he was linked to the Lions so much and loved them so much, he couldn't leave. He couldn't go on to the next life until the Lions broke that curse and became champions and won a championship. So that has been time and time again. And even to this day, people say that they hear Jimmy Hoffa's voice in that stadium. They hear him cheering, they hear him clapping, applauding, etc. But that's the story of Jimmy Hoffa and why he is actually goes to actually haunts the Detroit Lions Stadium and not under Giant Stadium. All right, so there you have it. Those are your 4 ghost stories related to football. And of course, we always have the Gipper, George Gipp, which I did when I talked about Indiana, his ghost, who haunts the University of Indiana as well. I mean, I'm sorry, who haunts the University of Notre Dame. And I did that on a prior show, so I wouldn't bring it up here again. But that's also a premier ghost related to football story. All right, there you go. Well, Benny, so those are your stories. I hope you enjoyed them. Let me see in the chat here before I move on to the next segment. Bobo, so he made it into the chopped meat at the meat market. And also, way he ate barbecue as a hamburger. What else we got here? How do people know his voice? I don't know. They don't. They just, well, if you listen to tapes of his voice, he has a very distinct voice. He has a very distinct accent. If you ever listen to tapes of Jimmy Hoffa or listen to a film where he's talking, he has a very distinct voice. So I'm fine with that they could hear his voice, because you'd know it if you'd hear it. Let me see what else is in the chat here. All right. Well, thank you all, guys. Bobo, thank you for joining. Dave T, Bill C, great to see you guys. Haunted News says Jimmy Hoffa is one of those guys that frequently shows up in mystery shows. Everyone believes he was whacked by the mob, but no one knows where. They buried the body. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. All right. All right. So there you have your stories. Let's move on to the next segment. Dave T said the Bears owner, Virginia McCaskey, passed away on Thursday, 102 years old. Wow. Okay. His son followed him. Yeah, Bobo. Yes. Yep. That's in our time. That's a few years ago, right? We all know that. We've all seen that. Sure. All right. Let's get on to our what do you call it here? Our paranormal videos. All right. And the famous disclaimer I always give you guys. We try to debunk it. We try to figure out a real reason for it, or a real, what could have caused it. And only then do we possibly believe that it's genuine. Try to figure out if it's faked, if it's easily faked. Now, most of the easily faked ones, I don't even show you. I don't even, things moving. There's so many videos of that, things moving, which is so easy to do. I don't even bring them up. I only bring up apparitions to you guys because the other things are so easy to fake. It's a joke. So I wouldn't even waste your time with them. And like I said, these get harder and harder because, there's a lot of junk out there. But keep trying, right? So let's start here. Now, see, the first one we're going to do here. All right. Here we go. All right. Now, window. Here we go. All right. This is in a store slash, I don't know, store slash club or something. I don't know. It's in Mexico, so it's kind of weird here how it's set up. But you could see in this video, there's a guy playing a video game here, right? He's playing a virtual video game, right? Now look in the back here. You see this right here. Look at this right here. That is an apparition, or at least that's what they say it is. So let's play it and see what you think. Now you can see it moving, right? The child's apparition right here. It's going to move over here somewhere. There we go. Here's a close-up version of it. Now you can see it's see-through, right? I'm sorry, that's actually a woman that's playing the video game. But anyway, and there he goes. He's gone. So let's back that up a bit here. He goes to here, and this is where he disappears, right? But now I'm seeing something already that tells me that this is not, let's see, this is not a ghost. All right. Here's what I think is going on here. I think this is a blurred image from the camera. Now watch this. Watch when he darts out of the picture. Watch what happens. I'm going to do this. I'm going to move it slowly if I can. All right. Right, here he goes. He vanishes here. But look at all the way at the side. Look over this. You see this? You see all the way at the end, there's something there. He darts here, but then there's something in the corner that pops out at the end there, which shows me that I think it's just a blurred image from him darting so quickly. The camera's not picking him up. The camera's focused on the woman. And as this kid comes out and then darts past, it loses him. It loses him. And there you have it. That's my theory on that one. So now, the haunted news, the reason for this one, or the backstory for this one, is supposedly this guy had paranormal activity in his store and in his club, and then he put up these cameras to see what he could catch. So whenever that is the backstory to it, I always think it's suspect a bit, because that means he's looking to do something. He's looking for something here. But this, to me, the way this vanishes like that, and then you can see the little tiny bit of the head at the end, and it's an apparition except for the hair, right? That doesn't make much sense either. The hair is clear. The hair is a clear picture, and everything below him is an apparition. To me, that is just a blurring of the camera. The camera was able to pick up the hair because of the darker color. The rest of it, it's blurred and it looks like it's see-through. So, I think that's the way it goes. This is just a. Yeah, Gina. See, it's two angles, so he wasn't shorter. It's that there was a farther distance shot, and then they go up close, right? It's. I think it's the same. It's just a closer up picture like that. So anyway, there you go. That's that one. I'm thinking that one has been debunked. We can say that's not a real one. All right. Let's go on to our next one. All right. All right, what do we got here now? The next one. All right, this takes place in a cemetery, I believe, in New Orleans, where they have these above ground mausoleums. All right. Now, watch this black figure here. Watch what happens with this black figure. As you can see, it goes up the side of the mausoleum there. Let's bring that back. Let's do it in slow motion. Now it's going to dart up the wall. When the person calls out. Now, here's my theory on this. Look at how it distorts. To me, this looks like it's a rope pulling a black shroud. As you can see, it pulls back, right? As if it's now all the weight is up at the top, which is being pulled, right? And then the camera conveniently jumps away. I think this is a hoax. This is just a hoax altogether. This is just a rope over the side of the mausoleum with a black shroud on it. And down at the bottom here, it looks like it's a, almost a figure. But then as you pull it up, you see it being pulled up as if you'd pull anything away. The sheet would fall backwards like that. The dark sheet. Hi, Zelda. Good to see you. So this one I'm saying is an outright hoax. But I thought it was kind of creepy how it starts at the bottom and then suddenly whoops up like that. All right. All right, that's number 2. Debunked. I wish I had better ones, but this is all I could find worth bringing up. All right. Now, my last one. I only have 3 this week. Here's my last one. Here we go. All right. Now, this is said to be the backstory to this is that the guards in this factory or area here see this child running around. Now, you see this child is running around. It's late at night. There's no reason for the child to be in there. They're watching it on a security camera. Now, watch where he goes. He goes into the wall. Look at that. It's as if he walks into the wall. It's next to the door, but he's going into the wall. He's not going in the door. The door's still closed, right? So they see this happening, and what they do is they send a guard out here to this area to see what he could discover. There's the guard looking at the door. Now watch what happens when he comes back out, when the guard comes back out. Now, this is the creepy part. All right, he's coming back out. Now watch to above him. Watch. It looks like the kid comes out of the wall and is looking at him. Watch. Only higher up. Now watch. Here we go. Look at this. Look at that. It looks like the kid is coming out of the wall looking at him. That creeped me out when I saw that. So I said, this is worth looking at. Go back here. He's coming out. Look at this. He's coming out of the wall and looking at him as he's pulling out. And then as he pulls out, he vanishes back in. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could do anything with a camera, but this one is, I don't know. This one really creeps me out. I don't know how you do this. I mean, how do you get the kid to be that high up and come out like that? And the story goes that the guard sees nothing here. The guard is checking out the area, looking for the child, and sees nothing over here. So I don't know. I don't know about this one. So that's that. I can't debunk this one outright. I don't have a clear explanation for this one. So we're going to say this one's unsolved. All right. Now, if I can just get back to where we are. There we go. All right. So there you have it, folks. There are your 3 paranormal videos for the week. I hope you enjoyed our 4 stories, football related. And next week, we'll be doing Valentine's Day, St. Valentine's Day ghost stories. As you can see, Lenny's already in garb for it. He's ready to go. So I hope those of you who do like football and are watching the NFL enjoy the Super Bowl this Sunday. And I will see you next week. Maybe. Who knows? But anyway, I'm going to blow out our candles and we're going to send you on your way. Check out Slim later. Slim will be on. Sliminy Cricket will be on as usual on his Friday night show. And until then, I want to say thank each and every one of you for joining me and have a blessed week. Ooh, it sparks over there. We can't have that. We don't need a fire. Anyway, have a great, great weekend. God bless.